The movie opens by establishing Charlestown, Boston, as the undisputed bank robbery capital of America, a blue-collar enclave where the trade is passed down like a family business. Without missing a beat, the story drops straight into pure adrenaline as a heavy-duty van pulls up outside the Cambridge Merchants Bank. For men in dark tactical gear and eerie, hyper-realistic skeleton masks storm the lobby with assault rifles drawn, moving with terrifying, military-grade precision. Doug McCrae takes control of the floor immediately, his calm, calculated authority keeping the panic from boiling over. His crew gets to work destroying every trace of evidence. Dez ruthlessly disables the security systems and rips the recording drives from the walls, while Glonzi monitors the perimeter. To eliminate any usable forensic data, they pour gallons of bleach directly onto the counters, registers, and floorboards to burn away DNA and fingerprints. The tension spikes inside the vault. Doug orders the branch manager, Claire Kesey, to open the safe on a strict countdown. She is visibly terrified, her hands trembling as she works the combination while staring down the barrel of a gun. Just as they bag the cash, the bank's assistant manager makes a desperate move and triggers a silent alarm beneath a desk. Jim Coughlin, the crew's unhinged enforcer, catches the movement instantly. In a vicious surge of rage, Jim pistol whips the manager to the floor, stomping him brutally. Doug steps in, forcefully shoving Jim back to keep the situation from turning into a murder scene. But with police sirens already echoing in the distance, Jim makes a reckless, unauthorized move. He grabs Claire by the arm and drags her out into the street as a human shield. The crew throws Claire into the back of the getaway van and tears through the narrow Boston traffic, expertly ditching their switch car and leaving the responding cruisers in the dust. Minutes later, parked beneath a deserted seaside bridge, C. After abandoning Claire on the beach, the crew pulls into an abandoned garage to torch the getaway van and incinerate every trace of forensic evidence. While the vehicle burns, Jim checks Claire's driver's license, which he stole from her purse. He discovers she lives right in their neighborhood in Charlestown, just 4 blocks away. Paranoid that Claire might recognize their voices, mannerisms, or neighborhood accents, Jim insists on tracking her down and taking care of her. Doug immediately shuts him down, promising that he will tell Claire himself to see if she knows anything, secretly intending to protect her from Jim's violent impulses. Meanwhile, FBI Special Agent Adam Frawley arrives at the Cambridge Bank to take command of the crime scene. Frawley delivers a sharp briefing to local detectives, analyzing the robbery's surgical precision, the scorched tape drives, the bleach used to destroy DNA, and the controlled timing. He notes that this is the trademark work of townies, career criminals from Charlestown. Frawley interviews a shaken Claire, pressing her for any detail, no matter how small, that could break the case. But she is too traumatized to offer concrete leads beyond describing the skeleton masks and the sheer terror of the vault. Doug begins staking out Claire's daily routine, sitting in his car and watching her navigate her neighborhood. He follows her to a public laundromat, watching through the glass as she breaks down in tears while loading a washing machine. Seeing her distress, Doug steps out of his vehicle, walks inside, and casually strikes up a conversation by pretending his quarters are stuck in a change machine. Claire, unaware she is looking at the man who orchestrated her kidnapping, responds to Doug's gentle demeanor. As they talk, she opens up about the robbery, confessing the lingering fear that has paralyzed her life. Doug listens intently, offering comforting words while subtly probing to find out what she told the FBI. Their conversation shifts from trauma to light humor, and the unexpected chemistry between them is immediate. Before Doug leaves, Claire agrees to meet him for a drink, setting into motion the dangerous, double-life romance that puts Doug on a direct collision course with both his best friend and the federal government. Doug meets Claire for their first real date at a casual, outdoor waterfront cafe. As they talk, Claire begins to let her guard down, charmed by Doug's quiet, grounded nature. She opens up about why she moved to Charlestown from an upscale background, explaining her passion for managing a local community garden for underprivileged kids. Doug shares glimpses of his own past, admitting he once had a promising shot at a professional hockey career before getting sidetracked by bad influences and family history. The conversation turns dark when Claire circles back to the trauma of the heist. She confesses that she is still terrified because she remembered a specific clue she hasn't told the FBI yet. When one of the robbers grabbed her neck, she caught a glimpse of a distinct fighting dog tattoo beneath his sleeve. Sitting across from her, Doug's stomach drops. He knows instantly she is describing Jim. Realizing that Jim would kill Claire on the spot if he knew she could identify him, Doug urges her to keep that detail to herself for now, framing it as protective advice so she won't draw unwanted attention back to her life. Meanwhile, FBI Special Agent Adam Frawley digs deep into Charlestown's criminal network. At the task force bullpen, Frawley reviews mugshots and surveillance files, zeroing in on Doug McCrae and Jim Coughlin. He identifies Doug as the cool, tactical brains of the outfit and Jim as the dangerous, muscle-bound enforcer who previously served 9 years in prison for manslaughter to protect Doug during an earlier street dispute. Frawley knows this crew is too disciplined to leave physical evidence, so he pivots his strategy to surveillance and psychological pressure, setting up wiretaps and undercover teams to monitor their hangouts. Later that evening, Jim recruits Doug for an unsanctioned, violent errand. A pair of local street thugs in the projects had previously harassed Jim's sister, Krista, who is also Doug's troubled ex-girlfriend. Putting on hockey masks, Doug and Jim corner the two men in an apartment, brutally beating them and shooting one in the leg as a warning. As they walk away, Doug is visibly disgusted by the endless cycle of neighborhood violence, deepening his resolve to break away from the crew, leave Charlestown behind, and build a real future with Claire. Doug visits Massachusetts Correctional Institution Cedar Junction to see his incarcerated father, Stephen McCrae. Sitting behind the glass, Doug tries to understand his past, asking why his mother abandoned them when he was a boy and whether a person can ever truly break free from Charlestown. His father is bitter and unsympathetic, coldly warning Doug that bloodlines don't lie and that trying to escape their lifestyle is a fool's errand. The visit leaves Doug feeling trapped, yet more desperate than ever to find a way out. Despite Doug's hesitations, the crew mobilizes for their next major operation, ambushing an armored cash transport truck in the narrow, congested streets of Boston's North End. To disguise themselves, the four men put on full Catholic nun habits paired with grotesque rubber masks. They box in the armored vehicle in an alleyway, using heavy-duty tools to breach the doors, disarm the guards at gunpoint, and transfer bags of cash into their getaway van. As they attempt to leave the alley, a Boston police cruiser spots them, sparking an immediate, high-speed vehicle chase. Glownsy maneuvers the van through tight corners and crowded traffic while Jim and Des lean out the windows with automatic rifles, unleashing heavy gunfire to blow out the engines of the pursuing police cruisers. The crew pulls into a secluded alleyway to torch the van and destroy all forensic evidence, quickly transferring the duffel bags into their secondary switch car. In the middle of the switch, a lone Boston patrol officer rounds the corner and freezes, staring directly at the armed men. Holding a smoking rifle, Doug locks eyes with the young officer for a tense, silent second. Realizing he is completely outgunned, the officer slowly turns his head in the opposite direction and pretends he never saw them. The crew piles into the switch car and speeds away, successfully pulling off another brazen escape just as sirens flood the surrounding blocks. Following the armored truck escape, FBI Special Agent Adam Frawley rounds up Doug, Jim, Glownsy, and Des, bringing them all into federal custody for interrogation. Despite facing intense psychological grilling and hours of intimidation in separate holding rooms, the four men maintain a wall of complete silence. With no physical evidence, no fingerprints, and no confessions, a furious Frawley is legally forced to cut them loose, though he doubles down on 24/7 surveillance around their neighborhood hangouts. Doug takes Claire away for a quiet weekend getaway, where their romantic bond solidifies. Standing together overlooking the water, Doug talks about starting completely fresh, suggesting they leave Boston behind and move south to Florida together. Claire, completely in love and unaware of his double life, enthusiastically agrees, believing they are leaving behind simple blue-collar struggles rather than an impending federal indictment. Back in Charlestown, the facade cracks. While driving through the neighborhood, Jim spots Doug casually walking and laughing with Claire on the street. Jim recognizes her face instantly from the driver's license he stole during the bank robbery. Shocked and enraged, Jim corners Doug in an alleyway, pulling a gun on him in a fit of paranoia. Jim accuses Doug of risking all their lives by sleeping with the only witness who could send them to federal prison for life. Doug shoves the gun away, lying that he only kept Claire close to ensure she never talks, while firmly telling Jim that he is finished with the crew and walking away from bank robbing for good. Doug heads directly to the flower shop of local crime kingpin Fergus, the florist Colm, to announce his retirement. Fergus laughs off Doug's request and turns lethal, revealing a dark family secret. Years ago, Fergus intentionally fed Doug's mother pure heroin until she overdosed and hanged herself after her husband went to prison. Fergus makes it brutally clear that Doug belongs. FBI Special Agent Adam Frawley tracks down Claire Kesey, ambushing her while she is working in the community garden. He brings her into federal offices and drops a devastating bombshell. He reveals that Doug McCrae is not a quiet municipal worker, but a lifelong bank robber and the mastermind behind the very crew that held her hostage at the Cambridge Bank. To prove it, Frawley shows her surveillance photos of Doug and Jim, along with an image of Jim's distinct fighting dog neck tattoo. Heartbroken, horrified, and feeling utterly manipulated, Claire realizes the man she fell in love with is the person who shattered her life. Frawley offers Claire an ultimatum: wear a wire to trap Doug, or face federal charges as an accomplice for withholding information about the tattoo. Crushed under the weight of the betrayal, Claire agrees to cooperate. Later, while federal agents sit in an unmarked surveillance van tapping her phone line, Doug calls Claire to finalize their plans to leave for Florida. During the tense call, Doug senses something is wrong in her voice. Claire drops a coded reference to an inside joke about a sunny day, which they had earlier joked only happens when trouble is brewing, subtly warning Doug that federal agents are listening to the call. Realizing she knows the truth and that the FBI is closing in, Doug hangs up, devastated but aware he must run. Meanwhile, Doug's bitter, substance-abusing ex-girlfriend, Krista Coughlin, Jim's sister, gets into a violent car crash while driving intoxicated with her young daughter. Frawley arrives at the hospital and corners Krista in her bed. Exploiting her jealousy over Doug leaving town with Claire and threatening to place her child into state foster care, Frawley pressures Krista until she breaks. In exchange for immunity and custody of her daughter, Krista spills everything: the crew's plans, the target, and the timing of the Fenway Park cash vault robbery. With no way out and Fergus holding Claire's life hostage, Doug regroups with Jim, Glonsey, and Des. Fully unaware that the FBI has already been tipped off by Krista and is setting a massive trap at the stadium, the four men load their tactical gear and prepare to execute the Fenway heist. Disguised in full Boston police uniforms, Doug, Jim, Glonsey, and Des slip into the basement tunnels of Fenway Park during the final innings of a packed Red Sox game. Moving with practiced precision, they breach the counting room, subdue the security guards, and pack over $3.5 million into duffel bags. With the cash secured, they load the loot into an emergency ambulance parked in the stadium's loading dock, preparing for what they believe will be a smooth getaway. The moment the ambulance pulls out of the tunnel, FBI SWAT teams and Boston police surround them in the alleyways, opening fire with heavy automatic weapons. Des is struck in the head and killed instantly inside the vehicle. Glonsey accelerates, driving directly toward a barricade of police cruisers to create a distraction, but he is riddled with bullets and crashes into a wall, dying at the wheel. Doug and Jim grab the cash bags and fight their way on foot into the surrounding city blocks. During the running street battle, Jim is shot in the leg and pinned down behind a trash container. Out of ammunition, wounded, and refusing to spend the rest of his life in prison, Jim steps into the open to draw fire from the tactical officers and drinks a soda from a discarded cup before federal agents gun him down. Doug strips off his tactical gear and slips into an unattended paramedic uniform, coolly walking past the perimeter of responding emergency vehicles and boarding a city transit train. Before fleeing Boston, he heads straight to Fergus Combs' flower shop. Doug shoots Fergus's bodyguard dead on the spot, then turns his gun on Fergus, executing the crime boss to avenge his mother's death and permanently eliminate the threat against Claire. Doug places one final call to Claire from a payphone at South Station, knowing the FBI is tracing the call. As federal agents listen in, Doug thanks her for saving his life with her warning and promises they will see each other again in another life. Doug hops a freight train south, settling into a remote cabin in the Florida Everglades. Back in Charlestown, Claire finds a buried bag of cash along with a tangerine in her community garden, funding a new recreation facility for the neighborhood kids and fulfilling Doug's promise of a fresh start.